Welcome back. The panel is with us from their remote locations. NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker. Richard Haass, president of the Council on Foreign Relations and author of the new book, The World, A Brief Introduction. Just a little quick pamphlet there. And Wall Street Journal columnist Peggy Noonan. It's quite the ambition there, Richard. The world, you know, a small focus for one book. But let me start, Kristen Welker, with you. There's a report this morning that staffers in the White House are a bit rattled. 2 positive tests in the last week. Suddenly, a sobering reminder that the virus is still even inside their house.
That's right, Chuck. This is the week that everything changed at the White House. This is the week that they went from fighting an invisible enemy, as the president has dubbed it, to an enemy that landed squarely on the steps of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And so there's a lot of discussion about how many more officials may need to be in quarantine. Of course, we saw that the head of the FDA, as well as the CDC, Dr. Anthony Fauci, is going to be quarantining in a measured form. But really, it put on display this sharp disconnect, Chuck. The fact that the White House is essentially urging the country to reopen cities and states, and yet those same cities and states do not have the same level of testing that exists at the White House. We know the administration is ramping up testing, 8 million tests so far. They want to try to double that by the end of May, but not clear what the plan is moving forward, Chuck.
Peggy Noonan, it feels like that was what I took away from all of our interviews so far this morning, which was, you know, nobody is saying you can't reopen. You just have to have a plan to do it. And there's just a lot of frustration that there isn't one.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of frustration that there is not really a clear national plan. As for state plans, their criteria for opening in some cases seem a little complex, a little provisional, and dependent on testing and tracing and such turning out very well. It seemed to me, Chuck, your whole theme on this show has been, what is the plan? I think we're realizing we don't have one, and it's going to bubble up from regionally, probably not nationally. But I thought the most interesting thing said this morning that sums up the moment we're in was from one of your doctors at the beginning, who said, where are we? We must learn how to live with this virus. There was a sense from him as he spoke. I kind of thought, yeah, he's saying we're going to have to muddle through. I think maybe one of the ways that would be most helpful to muddle through at this point, as citizens and states take on a lot of responsibility, is just to understand this is a dual crisis. It's not only an illness, it is an economic crisis that's going to demand creativity and ingenuity from all of us.
Richard Haass, given your expertise, I want to ask, I want to look at this from a global perspective here, because the other part of this is odd. The United States is the infected country. It's the country that others around the world don't want to emulate right now. We're not the country that's leading the response to the pandemic, or it doesn't feel this way. What does that mean to you going forward, and how concerning is that to you?
Well, you're right, Chuck. We're not leading by example, and we're not leading full stop. This comes against the backdrop where this administration has largely abdicated the U.S. role of leadership in the world, pulling out of all sorts of agreements. We didn't even participate in the Europe-led effort to come up with a vaccine. And people ought to be worried. Think about the situation right now. You've got all the traditional problems, a rising China, an angry Russia, North Korea, Iran with their nuclear ambitions. Then you've got all the global issues, including the pandemic, but also climate change, terrorism, problems in cyberspace. All this at a time the United States is diminished and we are distracted. And that's a really toxic brew for the future of the world. And what we've learned from this crisis, if things go badly in the world, we are not immune. They go badly for us as well.
Kristen Welker.
Well, Chuck, we know against that backdrop, the president's key focus right now is not just on the medical crisis, but on trying to restart the economy. And it's not clear what the plan is there. We know that his administration officials have shown him numbers that really rattled him. An unemployment rate even greater than what we see right now. We're told that the worst case scenario was topping 30%. So there's a lot of discussion right now within the White House about what to do, how to move forward. Right. We know that some of the things under consideration, delaying tax day, for example, a moratorium on new regulations, but no decisions yet, Chuck, and a sharp divide in Congress between Democrats and Republicans about what, if any, next steps need to be taken. Republicans saying, look, we've already passed $30 trillion in stimulus, but Democrats say state and local governments need even more.
Peggy Noonan, this feels like this is really going to divide the Republican Party on the issue of spending, because you do have some sort of the more populist members, people like Josh Hawley, Marco Rubio, who do think you do need more federal spending. But then you got sort of the more traditionalists who believe that, no, let's focus on the debt, let's focus on the debt. That could hinder the recovery.
I think what we're seeing now, if we see this in the Republican Party, as I suspect we will, between, say, Josh Hawley and Marco, who say, look, this is a crisis. We must spend as wisely as we can, but as much as we need to, versus others who'll say, look, almost ancient conservative principles involve controlling the power of government. It's intrusion, it's expense, right. It's cost. Sure, that'll be fought out somewhat, but I got to tell you, that argument has been fought out since it's almost part of what produced Donald Trump, who really said to his audiences in 2016, hey, I'm not going to touch government spending. I'm not going to bother these entitlements. I think the base of the party would support an attitude of throw whatever against the wall. You have to see what sticks. We are in a historic crisis. If going against our traditional views will help dig us out, go against them, dig us out.
Richard Haass, I want to get your reaction. The Secretary of State walked back one of the most roughest charges that the U.S. government has been making about the virus against the Chinese. Let me play for you first the accusation, then the Secretary's walk back.
The Chinese government hasn't permitted American scientists to go into China, to go into not only the Wuhan lab, but wherever it needs to go to learn about this virus, to learn about its origins. We don't have certainty, and there is significant evidence that this came from the laboratory. Those statements can both be true.
I'm of two minds on this, Richard Haass. If this is true, should we be shouting it from the rooftops, go to the UN, present the evidence, and go from there? Or is this going to be something that we're going to regret because it creates basically a Cold War over this virus for the globe to deal with?
Chuck, Chinese performance has been bad, whether this came out of a lab or not. They covered up, they allowed people to leave Wuhan, and we're all paying a price for it. What started in Wuhan didn't stay there. So that's a fact. Again, whether they're covering up the fact it came out of a lab, we don't have information supporting that. The Secretary of State got forward on his skis, and that's always a mistake. People say in war, truth is the first casualty. We ought to husband the truth carefully. The larger issue, though, is, look, the United States and China are the two most powerful countries of this era, the two most influential. Our relationship will go a long ways towards defining the character of this era of history. The challenge for us is going to be to push back against China where we can, criticize them on their pandemic, criticize them on human rights, push back at what they're doing in the South China Sea. But we still need to protect and preserve areas of potential cooperation on climate change or, say, on dealing with the North Korean nuclear challenge. Right. That's going to be a hard piece of foreign policy to get right, but that's the challenge.
All right, I'm going to pause the conversation there. Just an excellent group dynamic. Much appreciated. Hello from Washington. I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe, and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.